From the Mapleview Animal Hospital studios, this is the WHTC Morning News with Gary Stevens and Peg McNichol on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to the WHTC Morning News for this Monday, November the 2nd. I hate to begin our conversation with Hope College political science professor Dr. David Ryden on this note, so I will first say this. David, good morning and welcome back to WHTC.
Good morning, Gary. I'm a little nervous about what's to come.
Okay, according to this, I'm not going to play the report, but from our wire service, it looks as if more than half of Americans think the most stressful day of their lives is coming tomorrow. Are we taking this election far too seriously, or what?
Absolutely. That is an utter lack of perspective. Hands down. It's consequential, absolutely. But people are treating this as if the existence of the republic turns on it. And I refuse to go there. It really demonstrates skewed and disproportionate sort of view of politics. And I teach politics. I love politics. Politics is important, but politics is not our lives. In fact, it should only be a relatively small part of our lives. And this has really gotten out of hand. I am telling every audience I have, whether it's students in my classroom or a church Sunday school group or a civic organization, that we have to anchor ourselves to something other than politics. And so it's troubling, but it's not surprising. I've never quite seen anything like this.
Not only that, I this is from CBS, their prep service that they provide to our stations. I'm going to just read it to you, David. I want to get your thoughts on this. Fearing the end of democracy as we know it, more than 80 international and American scholars in authoritarianism and fascism wrote an open letter to the public forecasting a frightening regression if safeguards are not put in place. Whether Donald J. Trump is a fascist, a post-fascist populist, an autocrat, or just a bumbling opportunist, the danger to democracy did not arrive with his presidency and goes well beyond November 3rd, 2020. This was the experts in 20th century authoritarian populism, fascism, and political extremism wrote in a post published Saturday. Scholars from universities in the United States, as well as the UK, Israel, and Italy, criticized Mr. Trump, but do not endorse Joe Biden in the letter, instead arguing that injustices surfaced by the coronavirus pandemic and heightened nationalism are concerning no matter the election's outcome. The experts who have knowledge of what led to the rise of past authoritarian and fascist regimes say democracy is at stake. Again, are we taking this too seriously, or maybe this letter has some merit?
Well, I mean, the environment in which this election is taking place is unique. And I dare say we've never had an accumulation of sort of earth-shaking factors, a confluence of those coming together at a moment like this. And so it is the looming, sower of chaos that is Donald Trump and the presidential election, right? Happening in the midst of a now 8 or 9 month pandemic, racial unrest, often morphing into violence, a Supreme Court opening. It's really something. But the degree of polarization that we're struggling with, that is not new. That is not unparalleled. And we can look at other moments in history when we've had that. In my mind, it is a true test of the two major political parties. So historically, the parties have shown an incredible resilience, even when the pundits and the talking heads and the experts have written them off time and time and time again. Parties are resilient and parties are adaptive. So you have a party that looks like it's down and out and they're on the cusp of extinction, and they adapt to the circumstances. So that's the test, and it's a test for both parties in the wake of this election. Both parties are looking at huge obstacles that they will need to confront and adapt to if we're going to have a healthy two-party system going forward. So history does not suggest that this is going to be the end of our republic. But the question is, are we in a new moment where the parties are unable to adjust and adapt and sort of rebuild themselves, reconstitute themselves? Both parties have that task to do. One of the questions is, post-election day, depending on who wins and who loses, which party is going to be able to do that successfully, even between 2020 and 2024? These are fascinating questions for those of us who study political parties and campaigns and elections.
Could we then see, Dr. Ryden, maybe a third party emerge, or is that still a little bit that still might be a little bit wishful thinking for those who are looking for an alternative?
Well, it's awfully frustrating for those of us who are political and partisan orphans, who don't feel like we have a home. And I put myself in that category. In 2016, we had the two most historically unpopular presidential candidates since we've started keeping those numbers, going back to the 1940s. And there wasn't a serious third-party candidacy. Here we are in 2020, a president who's deeply disliked, has never gotten his approval ratings over 45%. We have a challenger who, even when he was in his prime, was prone to buffoonery and misstatement, and he's not as sharp as he once was. These are not the best of the political talent that they keep throwing at us. And yet, where's the serious third-party challenge? Now, there are all sorts of legal obstacles that are thrown at third parties. So it's difficult. But I'm amazed that someone with some sort of celebrity status, someone hasn't stepped up to try to lead a serious third-party challenge. The two major parties are not likely to be as flexible and responsive as we want them to be unless there's a third-party challenge that might go for some of those of us who remain in the middle.
Yeah, where is the John Andersons? Where is
that was my first presidential vote, was for John Anderson. That beats me, Gary.
That's all right. That's all right. That was my second. I'm all ears.
Mm-hmm.
He just passed away a little bit while ago. We sort of, we don't have that right now. If I can get this technically done right, Bill Zimfer with one of our wire services says this, and I want to get your thoughts on it. We've been deluged with presidential polls for months now, and with election day just hours away, Zimfer takes a look at really what we should be believing.
There's been a lot of skepticism about polls ever since 2016, when those polls showed Hillary Clinton with a comfortable lead. But throughout history, polls have been generally very accurate. Going back to the 30s, they have accurately predicted the winner the vast majority of times. There were some big misses, however, like 1948 when Harry Truman beat Thomas Dewey, 1976 when the polls had Gerald Ford up on Jimmy Carter, and of course 2000 when the polls had George W. Bush ahead, only to have Al Gore win the popular vote but still lose in the Electoral College. So where do we stand now? 10 national polls taken in the last 48 hours have Joe Biden up anywhere from 6 to 12 points. Is anyone comfortable? Absolutely not. I'm Bill Zimfer.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling you're nodding your head on this one there, David.
Well, yeah. Well, he cites national polls. National polls are meaningless. They tell us nothing. Nothing of use anyway. We need to get to the state level polls. We need to look at the swing states and what's going on there. Biden is ahead there, but it's by significantly smaller margins. So those are what matter. And then the second thing that matters is polling is getting simultaneously more sophisticated and more difficult to do. The more we move away from landlines, The more we have this fake news kind of sentiment, right? The more people are skeptical of polling, the more difficult it is to get honest responses or even to get people to pick up. So in my mind, the big question is the size of a hidden Donald Trump vote. If we're focusing on the presidential race, undoubtedly there is one. There are, right, the what we call social bias pressure, the pressure to say what the pollster wants, you think the pollster wants you to hear, right? I mean, Trump voters have been so stigmatized, so ostracized, and so caricatured. It would not be surprising if there's a significant social bias pressure and a hidden Trump vote. And the question simply is, how big is that? I'll put myself on record with great hesitancy. I don't think it's big enough for him to win the presidency, to win re-election. Having said that, it's possible. I still think he could thread the needle like he did in 2016 as we look at these swing states, and they're close enough. And if you put in that hidden Trump vote, it's possible. It's within the realm of the possible. The odd, it's an uphill battle. But so that's what we should be thinking about as we look at the polling data.
However, the anti-Trump sentiment, could that be enough to keep in 2 local elections Gary Peters for a second term in the U.S. Senate? And could it flip Fred Upton's congressional seat to John Hoadley? It
could. Yeah. So let me take Upton first. I think last week, Gary, I said Fred Upton is someone with 9 political lives and just seems to find a way to exist. Normally, it's in one's favor to run on a presidential ticket, and you have your president at the top of the ticket. I don't think that's proving to be the case on this side of the state. I think, he's something of a drag. And I think Huizenga is going to win by a smaller margin. I think it could imperil Upton, actually. The more I think about that. The John James race is a fascinating one. Yes, I think he has to run stronger than President Trump in this state. And I think he has the potential to. He has a statewide constituency of voters. He has a different persona. He can go into Detroit as an African-American conservative. So I'm watching that one very closely. I think he has a chance to upset the apple cart come the end of the day tomorrow. So we'll see. It's good, though. There are some interesting races here in the state of Michigan.
And the other interesting race, and we aren't really focusing it because it's not in our immediate area, Jerry Ford / Vern Ayler's seat that Justin Amash is leaving behind. Can the Meyer name prevail, or will Skolton follow on the coattails of Joe Biden and Gary Peters and turn that 3rd district blue instead of red?
Yeah, and I plead ignorance. I just haven't really sort of dived into that race. I probably have watched it as closely as you have, Gary. You probably watched it more closely. So I'm going to take a pass on that.
Okay, yeah. We certainly understand. Yeah, it's because it's further east of where we are, right, in the more immediate things as well. But it'll be very interesting to see. Real quick, your availability for Wednesday.
Are we going to know enough by Wednesday morning, Gary, to have a meaningful conversation?
Let's shoot for Thursday.
I think we need a couple days. I think Thursday we'll be able to talk about things with more certainty, more clarity.
Let's do it at this time Thursday morning, Dr. David Ryden. Let's do our little Zoom chat a little after 8:35.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
David Ryden, thank you very much for joining us on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.